Good morning. In our last class, we went through David Diop in detail. Today, we are going to start his very famous poem, Africa. The poem Africa is written by David Diop, a black African who was born in France in 1927. His father was from Senegal and his mother from Cameroon, and he grew up in France and West Africa, aware of both cultures and traditions. He was deeply concerned by the question of independence from colonial rule. He has written many poems fighting against the racial injustice. We already went through the details of David Diop in our last class. David Diop was born in France in 1927. His father was from Senegal, his mother was from Cameroon. He grew up in France and West Africa. That's why he got the opportunity to know both cultures and traditions in France and West Africa. He was deeply concerned by the question of independence from colonial rule. When he spent the time in West Africa, he got the opportunity to identify the after effects of colonial rule. So, he was deeply concerned by the question of independence from colonial rule. As the result, he has written many poems. Through his poems, he speaks about the racial injustice. David Mandesi Diop is famous for his work in the Negritude movement. In all his writings, he talks about the unjust treatment given to Africans by the colonial masters and his hope that one day Africa would be free from their rule. Diop's poems highlight African problems brought about by colonialism and give a message of hope and resistance to people of the continent. David Diop is very famous because of his work in the Negritude movement. Throughout his writings, he talks about the unjust treatment by the colonial masters to Africans. At the same time, he also gives hope that one day Africa would be free from their colonial rule. David Diop always highlights African problems, and he also gives a message of hope and resistance to people of the continent. This poem is a dramatic monologue where the speaker seems to be in conversation with Africa. The poem can be thematically divided into three parts: pre-colonial Africa, colonial Africa, and post-colonial Africa. We can see that the poem Africa is a dramatic monologue. In this poem, the speaker seems to be in conversation with Africa. We can divide this poem thematically into three parts: colonial Africa, and before and after colonial Africa. In this poem, Africa, he talks about his strong feelings against the colonial masters and criticizes them for exploiting other countries for their own benefit. Through this poem, David talks about his strong feelings against the colonial masters. He also criticizes the colonial masters because the colonial masters are exploiting other countries for their own benefit. They are so selfish, they are exploiting the lives of black or Africans. David Diop's Africa is a dialogue between a young poet and a mature or grave mind. It is a patriotic poem that visualizes the bitter taste of liberty for Africa. Africa had been a nation of proud warriors. We can also say that this poem is a dialogue between a young poet and a mature or grave mind. There is no doubt it is a patriotic poem. It visualizes the bitter taste of liberty for Africa. This poem underlines Africa had been a nation of proud warriors. We can see that there were very proud warriors in Africa. The poem Africa is about the glorious past of Africa, the nation in comparison with the present situation of the country and its citizens who are mere slaves. I already told you, when we go through the poem, we can see that there are three parts. We can see the glorious past of Africa. At the same time, in present situation, the citizens in Africa, they are just slaves. So we can start the poem. All of you please take the page number 101 in your textbook. Africa, my Africa, Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas, Africa of whom my grandmother sings. Then we can go through the glossary. Ancestral savannas. It's already given here in your textbook, page number 102. Grasslands that extends over the plains of African countries had a significant place in the lives of the natives. They gathered, played games, prayed, danced, and performed their traditional art forms and waged wars on these savannas. It is a beautiful grasslands. It extends over the plains of African countries. It had an important place in the lives of Africans. We can see that they are gathering, playing games, praying, dancing, performing their traditional art forms and wagging words on these savannas. In other words, a savanna is a mixed woodland grassland ecosystem characterized by the trees being sufficiently widely spaced. Savanna is a mixed woodland grassland ecosystem. We can see that there are so many trees in this place. Another word, grandmother sings. The grandmother's songs instill into the minds of the younger generation the stories of their land and race. A hint is also made at the rich oral tradition of the natives. Grandmother sings folk songs. By using these folk songs, they are passing their tradition and culture to the younger generation. These folk songs are the evidence Africans are rich in oral tradition. Through these folk songs, they are singing about their land and also their race. Africans are rich in culture. A folk song is a oral tradition of the natives. The opening line of the poem expresses the poet's love for his nation, Africa. He uses a possessive pronoun to exhibit his love for Africa. The poet regrets for not being a part of olden Africa, wherein it had many warriors and rich savannas. The poet has heard of the glorious past, about which he comes to know through the folk songs of his grandmother. I think if you remembered well the opening line of the poem Africa. Africa, my Africa. Which is the possessive pronoun the poet used here? It is my Africa. So through the opening line, the poet expresses his love for his nation Africa. By using the possessive pronoun my, he expresses his love for Africa. Even the poet, he is not being a part of olden Africa, but through his grandmother's folk songs, he knew about the rich savannas and also the warriors. When he knew that they had warriors and also rich savannas, he became very proud as an African. So through these lines, the poet reminds us Africans are very rich in their oral tradition, because he knew the details of the glorious past of Africa through his grandmother's folk songs. In these lines speaks about the glorious past of Africa. It is the state of pre-colonialism. Then we can move to the next lines. I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins. Your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields. The blood of your sweat, the sweat of your work, the work of your slavery. We can go through the paraphrase of these two lines. I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins. It's already given here in your textbook, page number 103. The poet has never been to Africa, but takes immense pride in being an African. Actually, the poet hadn't gone to Africa when they had savannas and warriors, but when he knew about the rich culture and warriors through his grandmother, he was very proud as an African. The poet vehemently transfers his pride about the country into a rage. The colonizers who enslaved the Africans drained all the blood which was exerted from the Africans in the form of work and sweat. The poet had great feelings. His feelings transfers his pride about the country into anger. The colonizers who enslaved the Africans, they used the manpower of Africans maximum. Africans were forced to work hard. But the poet has never known the nation. The poet asserts proudly that the African blood flows in his veins. The Africans had worked in distant lands as slaves. Their beautiful black blood irrigates the fields. The blood of their sweat, the sweat of their work, the work of their slavery, and the slavery of their children has enriched the distant lands. So we can see that actually the poet has never known the nation. He didn't have any idea about the glorious past of Africa. But when the poet knows about the warriors and beautiful savannas through his grandmother, he was very happy and proud. More than that, he also recognizes the African blood flows in his veins. At that moment, he feels very proud as an African. Then we can see that Africans had worked in distant lands just like slaves. They are forced to hard work by the colonizers. Their beautiful black blood irrigates the fields because they are working hard. As the result, their black blood is irrigating the fields. Their black blood is watering the fields. They are working hard in distant lands just like slaves. They are forced to do it. The blood of their sweat, it becomes the sweat of their work. They are working as slaves. They are forced to be slaves. They are working hard in the distant lands. This is the phase of colonialism in Africa. That's why the poet becomes very angry towards colonial rules. The colonizers, they are forced the Africans to act as slaves. They are exploiting them. They are using the maximum manpower of Africans. Then we can move to the next lines. Africa, tell me Africa, is this your back that is unbent? This back that never breaks under the weight of humiliation. This back trembling with red scars and saying no to the whip under the midday sun. First we can go through the glossary. Red scars. It is already given here in your textbook, page number 103. Marks of physical torture meted out by the colonizers. We can see the red marks. It is the result of physical torture by the colonizers towards Africans. The poet becomes ferocious and questions the silent submission of the Africans. He cannot digest the thought and sight of the Africans being bent with scars for the whips held by the colonizers. The colonizers used the Africans as slaves. More than that, they used their manpower maximum. They were forced to work hard. When they failed to work hard, they got severe punishment. So we can see the red scars on them. The colonizers tortured the Africans mentally and physically. So the poet becomes brutal and questions the silent submissions of the Africans. He cannot digest the thought and the sight of Africans being bent with the scars for the whips held by the colonizers. He can't understand why the Africans keep silent, why they are not at all ready to raise their sounds against the colonizers, why they become quiet when they are torturing by the colonizers. We can see that the colonizers are whipping them and making the scars on Africans. That's why the poet becomes ferocious and he questions the silent submission of the Africans. Therefore, the poet wants to know what the real Africa is. The Africans' bent back breaks under the weight of humiliation. The lashes received by their backs make them tremble with red scars. They also continued to work under the midday sun for fear of punishment. So the poet wants to know what the real Africa is. What is the real situation of Africa? Why the Africans bend back breaks under the weight of humiliation. We can see that Africans bend back breaks under the weight of humiliation. They are forced to work hard. They are tortured by the colonizers. The whiplashes received by their backs make them tremble with red scars. The colonizers make the red scars by using the lashes on the backs of Africans. Yet the Africans are continuing their work under the midday sun because of the punishment by the colonizers. Then we can move to the next lines. But a grey voice answers me, impetuous child, that tree, young and strong, that tree over there, splendidly alone amidst white and faded flowers. That is your Africa, springing up anew, springing up patiently, obstinately, whose fruit bit by bit acquires the bitter taste of liberty. We can discuss the word bitter taste. It's already given here in your textbook, page number 103. Bitter taste means liberty tastes bitter as it was earned at the cost of the lives of the ancestors. We can see that Africans lost their liberty once their forefathers had. The poet listens to a voice that talks about a tree which is found alone amidst white and faded flowers. The voice addresses the poet as an angry man. At the moment the poet listens to a voice, that voice starts to talk about a tree, and that tree is found alone amidst white and faded flowers. Actually, the voice addresses the poet as an angry man. When the poet asks these questions about the African silent submission, at the moment he listens to a voice. That voice talks about a tree. That tree is found alone amidst white and faded flowers. The voice says him that the tree is Africa, the poets on Africa. Like the tree growing patiently, Africans would also taste the fruits liberty. I think all of you remembered well. The poet listens a voice. That voice starts to talk about a tree. That tree is alone in the middle of white and faded flowers. So that voice says the poet that the tree is Africa, the poets on Africa. Then the voice also reminds him to observe the life of a tree. The tree is growing very patiently by taking the years. The tree starts to give fruits after so many years. So the voice reminds him, wait like a tree. Like the tree, you should grow patiently. So definitely Africans would also taste the fruits liberty. The tree has its growing period. Like that, Africans are also passing through this growing period to enjoy the taste of liberty. So definitely they should get the fruit of freedom. The poet's earnest query is answered by a grave voice. The voice is metaphoric. The young and strong tree that grows again patiently, obstinately, will gradually acquire the bitter taste of liberty. When the poet makes an honest enquiry about the silent submission of Africans, he got the answer by a grave voice. So the voice is metaphoric. The voice says him, by taking the years, the tree becomes very strong and young. It grows patiently and obstinately. Obstinately means stubborn. So here we can see that the tree is growing very patiently with a determination. Like that, Africans should face these days patiently with a determination. Definitely they should acquire the bitter taste of liberty. The enigmatic and puzzling answer of the grave voice is optimistic. It suggests a supreme sacrifice on the part of the youth. By addressing the questioner as impetuous son, the grave voice prophetically pursues him to have revolutionary patience to achieve liberty. The answer of the grave voice is enigmatic and puzzling. It is difficult to understand and it is confusing, but at the same time it is very optimistic. It makes a new hope among Africans. It also reminds us the supreme sacrifice on the part of the youth. Definitely it reminds us the Africans are living under the colonial rule by their supreme sacrifice. Here we can see that the grave voice addresses the questioner as impetuous son, means very active son. The grave voice prophetically encourages him to have revolutionary patience to get the liberty. It's the time to wait with determination. Definitely they will get liberty. So this poem is ended with a hope. The tone of the poem is optimistic. That's why I told you David Diop's Africa is a dialogue between a young poet and a mature or grave mind. It is a patriotic poem that visualizes the bitter taste of liberty for Africa. This poem gives a message of hope and resistance to people of the continent. We will discuss the theme, figure of speech and questions relating this poem in our next class. I hope all of you enjoyed the beautiful poem Africa. So kindly go through the poem well. We will meet in the next class. Thank you.